Okay. And then I'm just going and I'm clicking on the one on my channel just to make sure we have sound and everything. So there will be a quick echo if it'll let me play on the computer. So I had to refresh it. Will be a quick echo. Good. So we've got sound, we've got visual. Everything is good to go. Yep. So basically just on the if you are watching on the YouTube screen as well, you'll just need to mute yours so we don't get echo.
Yep. I have it on mine. Just
I have mine muted.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll all just introduce ourselves. So I'm Heather from Heather's Heroes and Heroines.
I'm Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads.
I'm Monty from Monty B. Don't mind that I have lipstick smeared all over my mouth. I have no idea how I did this. Like, I look a hot mess. So I'm going to fix that real quick.
Okay. And we read Frankenstein this month. And I think me and Monty have the older version, the newer version.
The 1831 version.
Yes, and you have the original, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Figured the wide was actually wound up being better because it was like when you tried to hold something up, just completely cut off. But anyway, we're going to be talking about the book. We're also going to have some games to play. So if any of y'all are watching, I guess we can jump right into the Mad Lib, and that will just give people time to pop on. So I'm just going to ask y'all for certain words, and if you're a host, you can shout it out to me, and I'll type it in there. And then, of course, if we get anything on the chat bar,
yep, I would say let the people in the chat bar have first dibs.
Y'all might have to yell them to me when you see them, because I'm going to be on a different part of the screen to type in the answers.
Okay.
So. All right. So the first one I need is an ing verb. So any verb ending in ing.
We are stalking the chat, waiting for someone to type something in.
It might just be us watching right now, but there's quite a few to do.
Nope. Roy Reads Anything came up.
That one. Pacing. Okay. And then the next one is a noun. And y'all in the chat, you can just keep putting it in. It don't matter if it's one person or two people, it's fine. We just need a noun, any noun. These are always funny because when it does nouns, I usually put it in a person and it just wants like baseball. So it wants
someone puts in, let's do from the iceberg. Got one?
Yep, tree.
Tree. All right.
That's good.
All right.
Hey, and Roy reads anything. Hey, Roy.
And then we need an adjective that follow. Oh, yeah, just an adjective.
I think we're making Roy just do this whole thing for us.
That might be. Y'all can pop in some every once in a while. I mean, I'm telling you, there's plenty of these.
Let's do adjective grizzly.
Grizzly.
That's good.
Okay, next up, we need a verb that is in the present tense.
How about we do grab? Like, or would it be grabbing or grab? Grab.
Okay. And then I need another adjective.
Smelly.
Okay, I love that one. And then a noun.
Princess.
Ooh. This is going to be so good. And then a subject, like an educational subject. Or like an art form, any like subject, anything that you can study.
Quantum physics.
Okay.
We were talking about it at work earlier, so like.
Well, you
how
have a
to-
noun from Roy, Anvil. So if you get another noun,
Perfect. That was the next thing that I needed was a noun. So, all right. Next, I need a number.
42.
Okay. And next, I need another adjective. I told you there was going to be a lot of these. I'm actually going to need two, well, an adjective and then an adverb. Adjective, adverb, and then another verb. That way we can get a couple things going at once.
Adjective. Let's do.
Unholy. So I'll use that for the adverb. Unholy.
That's good.
So we need an adjective. Let me see.
Yes.
Tall.
Okay. And then a verb.
Any particular tense you're looking for?
Present.
Swim.
All right. And then a plural noun.
Ducks.
Okay. Another adjective.
Ugly.
Okay. And then a person's name.
Gotta have to go with Victor.
Okay. And then a present tense verb.
Dance.
You said dance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then an ing verb.
Drinking.
Okay. And then a present tense verb.
Grunt.
That's a good one.
Grunts. Okay.
Grunt.
Mhm.
Grunts. And then another adverb. When I had used the adverb earlier, I think it was actually functioning as an adjective, so I moved the unholy later down. So I'm having to replace where I initially put it.
Another. You want to add? Did you want an adverb or an adjective?
Oh, that's what I meant, an adverb.
Gently.
Perfect. All right. And then a noun. And then it's going to be another adjective and another noun and another noun. So lots of nouns that we need.
Do a beer mug.
Beer mug. Okay. So we still need two nouns and another adjective. We've got
Firehouse for another noun.
Okay. Firehouse, and then we've got city as well. Firehouse.
City. Let's go for Geneva.
Oh no,
No,
I meant
city's what Roy contributed.
Oh, so you did that. Oh, so
Oh,
I thought you were asking for a city.
no. Another adjective.
Another adjective. Dense.
Okay. I read what that part of the sentence is, and and it's accurate. It is so accurate. I haven't even read like the story together, so I don't really know what's going to come of this, but I think it's going to be good. Another ing verb, and then another present tense verb.
Skiing.
Okay. And also an adverb.
Anxiously for the adverb.
Anxiously? Anxiously, and then we've got reducing. And then another verb.
Stab.
Oh, I like it. And then a disease, and then another adjective, and then that's it. So a disease and an adjective.
How about cholera?
Okay. Lupus. Okay, and then another adjective. I added both the diseases.
Perfect.
So then we just need the adjective.
Let's see what Roy comes up with. Because Roy's coming up with some golden ones here.
Fine.
Fine. Okay, awesome. Now, Roy, have you read the book? Because I think you're the only one on here, and I was going to make people hold out for this Mad Lib until the end, but if you're good to get some spoils, we will just start right off the bat with this Mad Lib. Okay, perfect. So I hope y'all are ready for this. This is going to be hilarious. All right. It's kind of like they did it like a blurb, like where they rewrote the blurb for Frankenstein. And that's what the blanks look like it was. So who knows how this is going to go. All right. Captain Walton, while pacing to the North Pole, becomes trapped in the tree. He soon encounters a grisly man who is near death traveling on the ice. His name is Victor Frankenstein. Victor grabs Captain Walton, explaining the smelly story. As a young princess, Victor studies quantum physics and becomes obsessed with discovering the secrets of Anvil. After spending 42 years in tall study, he finally makes a great discovery. He then gently begins to swim a creature out of ducks. One ugly night, he succeeds in bringing the creature to life. He names it Victor. When I was typing it in, I laughed so hard because I'm like, he would.
Of course he would. Absolutely he would.
Victor is so horrified by his deed that he dances all over town before drinking back home to find the creature gone. The monster grunts Victor's younger brother, causing an unholy woman to be executed for the murder. The monster then finds Victor and begs him to create a beer mug for him. Okay, now here's the kicker. Here's the kicker with one of these that y'all suggested, all right? Victor is dense.
Truth.
But he agrees to do it anyway. He later chickens out and puts the firehouse in a city. But the monster finds out and kills Victor's friend Henry for vengeance and promises to be with Victor on his wedding night, but not in a sexy way. Now Victor is skiing big time. He anxiously reducing Elizabeth anyway. And of course, the monster kills her, and then Victor's dad dies of grief. Things are going really well. Victor vows to stab the monster and is picked up by Captain Walton in the process. Finally, Victor dies of cholera and lupus, and the monster, who is very fine, goes off to die too. So that was the whole thing there.
Awesome, Heather. That was funny.
So
That was good.
I was like that. Some of those were so accurate that it wasn't funny because it was just true.
Yeah.
Oh man. So before we get into discussing the book for real, we also have some memes to share. So I
I'm
am
excited.
going to share some of these. Some of these are non-spoilers. But honestly, since we've already got into spoils, I am completely fine with showing all of the memes. Do we want to do that?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes. Let's see them.
Okay. So here is the first one. Actually, I think I have to add it to the screen for y'all. Oh, can you see it?
Mhm.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
I know it's kind of small. I can't really do anything to make it bigger. But it says, you're looking for a book about Frankenstein at the beach? See Shelley.
It's ridiculous.
You, when someone eats the last slice of pizza.
Truth.
I entered a bodybuilding competition and I've seriously misunderstood the objective. It's like that thing where people are be like, she understood the assignment. So it's like a play on that.
Well, Victor's never going to understand the assignment. Like, he's just not.
This one I verified with Alexa and I was shocked. So it says Frankenstein author Mary Shelley kept her dead husband's heart and carried it with her for almost 30 years until she died in 1851. It was found in a desk drawer a year later, wrapped in a copy of one of his final poems. I was like,
Wow.
what? Now, there
Wow.
was another one that said that Albert Einstein had a brother called Frank Einstein that he did experiments with. But I couldn't verify that.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think that one's true.
yeah, I couldn't verify that. And then the heart one I asked Alexa, so it could just be that so many people have propagated that she agrees.
Yikes.
But if it is true, carrying your husband's heart around like for 30 years, you'd think it would decompose at that point.
Yeah.
Like, turn into dust. Well, but what if she had it preserved though? Like if she carried it around in like a jar of like formaldehyde, it could hang out there for a long time.
This just says that it was found in a drawer wrapped in a copy of one of his final poems.
Well, maybe she had it treated with like some kind of form of formaldehyde, right? Or some kind of preserving agent. So she could have had it preserved. I don't think she was just carrying around like this heart.
I just wonder if it's actually true or if it's just so widely on the internet that Alexa thinks it's true.
It's just one of the biggest urban legends ever.
Right? Right? I'm like, who knows? Who knows? But it is still kind of funny that like Albert Einstein has a brother called Frank Einstein. So it's a line. It's a line.
All right.
Frankenstein lives next door. I'm Frankenstein's monster. Common mistake.
Oh, legit. That's true.
I identify with Frankenstein's monster because I too am intellectually curious, held together by a thread, seeking love and affection, interested in burning down the homes of those who have betrayed me, scared by my own reflection, and better in theory than in real life. I don't know what haunts me more, the thought of what we could have been or the thought of Frankenstein dating my mom.
That last one, I'm like, okay.
So those were like the kind of non-spoilery ones, but then we get into more spoils.
Love it.
So this is going to be interesting. Walton waiting for Frankenstein to tell his story.
Oh, are you sharing them?
Yeah. Oh, is it not showing it?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you told me.
Well, because I want to see them.
Yeah. Can you see it now?
I like it.
And then Victor Frankenstein, approximately 0.5 seconds after bringing his creature to life. No, that's too much. Too much responsibility for me. I gotta find a way out of this.
That's the truth right there.
Yes.
That is the absolute truth.
I went through like 100 memes that had to do with him not taking responsibility. So Victor Frankenstein builds a creature and brings it to life. Victor Frankenstein, no, he's ugly. Alive only for a few months, has better grammar and vocabulary than most of the internet.
Has better grammar and vocabulary than I could ever hope to achieve.
Victor Frankenstein finding the last body part he needs to complete his creation. Finally, a leg. But you know what they're really wanting you to put there, not a leg. Can you imagine? He's like going around collecting parts and he's like, oh, I need the genitalia.
Did you ever see Young Frankenstein?
I did at some point with my husband, but I haven't watched it in a long time.
There's a whole joke
Yeah.
about that.
Oh my.
Because, it's Mel Brooks. He had to make a penis joke.
Oh. So that must have been where it came from. And then this one says, Igor has just asked how Frankenstein will acquire parts for his monster. Easily, Igor. I'll ask human resources. Henry, so you created this monster, Victor. Yes. Henry, after years of work? Victor, correct. Henry, so it must mean a lot to you, right? Victor, don't care for it. I'm just like, yeah. Victor creates the monster. The monster opens his eyes. Victor, I'm asleep. Victor Frankenstein, college dropout, susceptible to nervous fevers, irresponsible parent, violated standard laboratory safety procedures. Frankenstein's so-called monster, learned French in less than a year, helps out local farmers, enjoys literature and long walks through the forest.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that anytime Victor had a problem, had some kind of, serious thing happening, he got sick. Poor baby had to go night-night take some naps.
It's so traumatic for him.
So, Heather, I have one funny thing before we get into our serious discussion.
Okay.
So I was thinking about it, did some research on the internet too, because I don't want to be the only authority in all of this. But I was looking at like the characteristics of dear old Victor, my favorite person in the whole wide world, my favorite character of this book. And after reading, researching, putting my own thoughts into it, I have decided, and if I'm going to offend anyone, I apologize. This is all in jest. This entertainment purposes only, allegedly. I would say that dearest Victor, because I don't ever think it mentions it in the book, would be your classic Aries, because takes no responsibility, ambitious, right, and successful, but doesn't want to deal with any of the consequences, obsessed with looks, and just kind of, like, I don't know. And like I said, if anyone is watching and you're an Aries, I'm not trying to bash
but like
on you.
the stereotype of it.
Yeah, this stereotypical low functioning Aries. Let's put it this way. I'm sure everyone that's watching is, if you're an Aries, you're high functioning and you're fabulous. But low functioning Aries are sometimes just the worst because they're so full of themselves and are so obsessed with outwards appearances. And sometimes they can just be the most awful people on the inside. And Yeah, and absolutely no accountability or responsibility. Everything. Even if the words came out of their mouth, 1,000 people to witness them saying something awful, it is somehow someone else's fault. Never theirs. Someone didn't stop them. Someone influenced them. So I just wanted to put in my contribution to this as the non-intellectual of this group. I'm declaring Victor Frankenstein a low-functioning Aries.
There are more. So I divided
I just
spoiler levels.
I noticed that Roy made a comment down below.
Yes.
And I actually have something from the book that I actually want to read.
Okay.
From that.
All right.
Okay. Oh, no mortal could support the horror of that countenance. A mummy again, endued with animation, could not be so hideous as that wretch. I had gazed on him while unfinished. He was ugly then, but when those muscles and joints were rendered capable of motion, it became a thing such as even Dante could not have conceived. And that I just noticed that quote because like he saw he was ugly as a dead body.
And see, it's funny that you say that because he also says that he was beautiful before he was created. Because I have a quote where it says that.
Read it, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so here we go. How can I describe my emotions at this catastrophe, or how delineate the wretch whom with such infinite pains and care I had endeavored to form? His limbs were in proportion, and I had selected his features as beautiful. Beautiful! Great God! His yellow skin scarcely covered the work of muscles and arteries. Beneath his hair was a lustrous black and flowing, his teeth of pearly whiteness, but these luxuriances only formed a more horrid contrast with his watery eyes that seemed almost of the same color as the dun white socks in which they were set. His shriveled complexion and straight black lips. So it's interesting that he describes him beforehand as beautiful and then afterward as ugly, like he always knew it would be ugly.
But did you notice, like, even in him describing it as beautiful,
what
towards the end, it was
chapter 5, part 1.
It was still a lot of kind of backhanded compliments in there.
Yeah.
Like, see, Victor's the worst. Like, you can't just say something was beautiful. No, he's describing it all eloquently, like beautiful writing. But even towards the end, he's talking about, you know, it's not as nice as one would think it is, because he's sitting there, you know, well, it this, and then the contrast. No, that's him throwing shade at the end there. Like, Victor's the worst.
Oh, it is, and Heather, the reason I'm wondering is, like, we are reading
two different versions.
We are reading two different versions, and this is the original version where he was sort of overlooking that ugliness until it became made with life. And that was going to bring me to the one quote that I wanted to read to start it off, which is not included in the 1831. And it's from Milton's Paradise Lost.
Oh.
Did I request thee, maker, from my clay to mold me man? Did I solicit thee from darkness to promote me? And this is like going back to the old kid. I didn't ask to be born. And that's going back to that. I mean, the monster eventually is going to go back to that. It's like, you made me this way, and you rejected me for what you made me. And I think that goes back to the early theology of at least Percy Shelley, who was an atheist. And we don't know what Mary Shelley's religious beliefs were. But she probably somewhat shared his, and this is all a play of Victor being the creator and the god, and what kind of god is he? And
there are a lot of biblical references too that I marked to talk about.
right. So at least this one, the interpretation I take is like there's two different theories. Victor's crime was either creation and abandonment, or was his crime the abandonment of the monster? And that's sort of like a big question to be talking about. And at least is my interpretation, at least from this, is like Victor's main crime was abandonment.
I would agree with that.
And not in the creation itself.
Absolutely. Well, it's just like we talked about, not the last stream, but the stream before, Greg. You know, Victor is a lot like a bad pet owner. You know, takes on the responsibility, or says, I want the responsibility of having this life. Now, in his case, he's creating it, which we could debate endlessly whether there's, right or wrong in that, right? But he goes ahead and does it. But then instead of taking care of what he has claimed responsibility for, he abandons it. Because he has no follow through and no accountability for anything. He is so shallow and so, and I'm going to say it, Victor's a straight up narcissist. Victor cares about Victor and Victor above all else. And he, even though throughout this entire book, he opines about like the virtues of his friends and blah, 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 because he's really good at saying all that. He honestly doesn't care about anyone but himself. End of story. And that is why the monster's so easily cast aside. Plus the monster's not pretty. So what kind of worth does he actually have?
I would definitely agree with Roy's statement too.
Absolutely, Roy.
The abandonment as the main sin by the sympathetic first person creature section. Also the way that she divides the book. Yes. Because in the first section, we've seen this crime that he's being accused of doing, but we don't actually know that it was for sure him. There's still that area of doubt where, again, it's just Victor wanting to place the blame on whatever he can. And so you don't get your confirmation until part 3, when you've already started to sympathize with Frankenstein, because you've started to get like his narrative. And then you find out like, oh, he is a bad guy.
Frankenstein's a bad guy. The creature's a bad guy.
Oh, everywhere. I'm getting into the so now we've got the memes where it gets more spoilery. Those were not spoilers. These are like the hot take memes.
Yup. Truth right there.
Take responsibility for my actions? No, just on monster. Yeah.
That's Frankenstein.
What if you wanted to create life, but God said you actually have to love and nurture your creation to prevent it from resenting you and becoming a monster? No. The consequences of his actions.
Yep.
What if the creature isn't the real monster, but Victor Frankenstein is? When you're reading chapters 11 through 16 and Frankenstein just kills William. Because that's where the shift is. Before that, you're so sympathetic to Frankenstein because you think he is innocent and he's just being wrongfully blamed because he's this monstrous looking creature. I'm saying Frankenstein, but you know what I mean. I mean,
yeah,
the monster.
You just go the monster, the creature.
Yeah, at first I'm like, I thought that was the creature that goes ahead, because that was the turning point of when I decided this book ain't my jam. This book is not my cup of tea.
I was like, oh no. And then there's one more section of these, which gets into the big spoilers. So Victor Frankenstein, when the creature he built from random corpses and then cruelly rejected, kills his brother, bestie, and wife. Why doesn't my life always work out perfectly? And then this one is Victor Frankenstein. I promise to make you a mate, the creature, and then actually make it, right? And then Frank, I don't know. She's like, and then actually make it, right? And that's kind of funny because it's like, okay, we've got Bride of Frankenstein, the movie, where it changes what happened in the book, and he actually goes through with it. So I have marked on here the question of if you think he should have went through with it or not. So we can talk about that in a bit. And then we've got Victor Frankenstein. Why do you hate me? Frankenstein's monster. You gave me the ugly. The creature dropping super obvious hints that he's going to kill Victor's wife. I'll be with you on your wedding night. Victor, what does it mean? What does it all mean? He does seem kind of clueless oftentimes.
Victor's dumb.
Okay, it's a fictional contrivance, but Mary Shaw hammered it home a number of times, and you got to kind of pick up on, like, why is Victor? I mean, he's so absorbed. Now, part of it is, you could argue, that he is so narcissistic, and that he cannot realize the monster is trying to make Victor as alone as itself. He wants to take away everything and make Victor Frankenstein just alone as the monster is alone.
And then we've got, make me a girlfriend. Excuse me? I'm ugly and it's all your fault. The least you can make me is a girlfriend. No, come on, just do it. Okay, fine. Because the movie kills Frankenstein's brother for revenge. Says he'll make me a wife. I have created life. Thanks, I hate it. Now I think this is the last one. The cold never bothered me anyway.
That's so messed up.
Because it's interesting because she creates this monster, but she doesn't really give him a lot of superpowers. The only thing that he really has that's like inhuman is the fact that he can withstand these cold temperatures. So it's interesting because really he's, it's like if these things didn't happen, would he be monstrous at all? Because he doesn't really have that much more ability than a regular person.
See here, I have to disagree a little bit here. We have gotten so involved is that to be like a superpowers, it has to be this extravagant, showy display of whatever, like he could bend metal bars just by looking at him or whatever. But he is he is so much better than a normal human being. He needs to eat less. He needs to sleep less. He learns so much faster. He's so much stronger. The fact that he will not freeze in the art is an amazing feat. And when you said it's not superpower, take back Hollywood. Take back the superhero movies where they're flying and doing whatnot. This creature is absolutely amazing. If they had a race of these creatures and a race of humans doing battle, humans would be wiped out with very little trouble.
That's what I think so cool because like she didn't use all of those extra stuff, if that makes sense. And it's still
that's modern.
Yeah.
That is a very modern interjection into stories, is that when you want to make something better, you, especially like on film, you have to be able to show it with special effects.
Well, I think it's almost better that it wasn't better, though, is kind of what I'm getting at. Because if you gave him all of that, then he's even less humanized. So it's you don't fear it as much because you know that it's not real. But because there is enough where it's just like the strength, for instance. Like any human can have strength. He's got like super strength, but it's just like an amplification of what we already see.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the like Spider-Man or something, there's no humans are climbing buildings and shooting guns out their wrist. so there's more detachment from that. It is more of like a magical element, and his are very much so not really magical attributes to him, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that way how she did it, and it makes it so good without all of the flash. All right. Are y'all ready to get into the main discussions? And we've already spoiled everything, so we can do sidebar, all that stuff. So, did y'all have any thoughts on Mrs. Frankenstein acquiring children?
I think that was perfectly normal in that day and age.
Yeah, the olden days was wild.
We look at it strange, but that was just, especially with death rates that parents could die and they just send off the kids to their relatives or friends, and they just consider them part of the family.
See, I kind of saw it of her as almost like how people sometimes do like good Samaritan deeds, but it's really for like a virtue signaling.
Yes.
So it's like the thing with for adoption, for instance. If I'm a white lady living in the US, why do I need to go over to China? It's like so I can like carry around this child and like virtue signal, and it's I kind of feel like the mom was doing that almost. She was like, I need this pretty arm candy to like walk around, because she literally says like, oh, she's got blonde hair, blue eyes, she's gorgeous, I want a baby girl, and then she just takes her. And then I think she does it again with Justine, but she uses Justine in a service role. So
but see, everything, people were only valued for their looks. This whole book, that's all throughout this book, people's values start with what is here, and I think that's just, that kind of reflects that theme. It started with, there, and it works it all the way through the end. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I do see where you're coming from with the virtue signaling, because she was and and the mom didn't want any of the other kids because the other kids weren't that good looking. But I also agree that, yeah, I'm sure back in the day you could just go get yourself a kid. Because the olden days were wild. There were no laws. There were no regulations. You do whatever you wanted.
So then we go on to William's death and Justine's sacrifice and wrongful.
I have a lot of thoughts on Justine.
And then that also goes into the views on the legal system, as well as what I think is very interesting, because I had this personal revelation probably in my late 20s, when the police brutality was like every week there was a new case. And I don't remember the exact one because there were so many. But I remember watching it. They had the full footage, and you hear the cop say like gun, gun, gun. But then you see the cop that's beside him toss the gun on the ground. Like you literally see him like underhanded toss it on the ground. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he is planting it there to look like the guy had a weapon. And it completely destroyed my worldview, because the whole time I was thinking like, oh, the media is just doing this. They want to divide us, all this other kind of stuff. Like just all of the mental gymnastics that you have to do in order to think that the world is just and that things work the way they're supposed to work. And I feel like Elizabeth has the same moment after Justine, where like her whole world has just broken in front of her, because she's realizing that things don't operate that way. And that like there is true evil.
I agree.
And so I have a quote that I put on here, and it says, "How kind and generous you are. Everyone else believes in her guilt, and that made me wretched, for I knew it was impossible, and to see everyone else's prejudiced In so deadly a manner rendered me hopeless and despairing. And so she's crying, and then her father says, "Dearest niece, dry your tears. If she is, as you believe, innocent, rely on justice of our laws and the activity with which I shall prevent the slightest shadow of partiality." And it's like, well, the law did not do her right because she does get killed.
Victor did not do her right. He knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said nothing.
Right.
Because if he said something, he would be exposing his own guilt.
Yep.
And we actually had a conversation about this, and we were discussing this in our Gothic horror
Movie. Oh, okay.
because I actually read this last month, but we're talking about what could have Victor done. I don't think he could have gone to the authorities and said, I reanimate corpses, and this is a reanimated corpse that killed William. That would not have gone over. But he could have come up with a credible story.
He could have pretended that he gave her the necklace, or Elizabeth could have pretended, because that was the only piece of evidence against her.
Right. And as I said, he could have come up with a story like, there's a madman that I met whatever place, and he's been stalking me, and I think it's him. He's a doctor, or not. He's not a doctor. He was a esteemed student. His father was well respected. The authorities would potentially have accepted that as testimony, and then they would have done the pitchforks and the torches and looked for some poor schmo running around the countryside. But Victor kept quiet, and that I just found like, she's innocent, and you are letting her die without saying. That's just moral cowardice.
Even with that, though, she had a whole jury, and she did have people that talked to her credit. Even if they didn't know about the monster, they still stood up for her and said that they didn't think that she did it. And so it was still like a whole jury of people found her guilty, because they always need to have a scapegoat. And she was an easy target. Poor Justine. Poor Justine.
Well, and at the end, I only had sympathy for two characters in this whole book. Justine's one of them. And at first, I was mad at Justine because I'm like, girl, you're innocent. Because at the end of all this, she takes responsibility for it. She takes ownership of that crime. And is like, yep, my fault. I did it. Because she's so scared of going to hell. Because it's that, and I think that's interesting if we think, if Percy Shelley was an atheist and Mary Shelley possibly shared those same beliefs, what that says about a lot of things. Because like I said, the entire time I was reading that, I'm like, Justine. And I had to really reflect on it and think about, because I was raised Catholic when I was a little kid, and like Catholic guilt's real. And I'm like, yup, I can see why you at the end were like, no, I'm so scared of this. Yeah, I'll take ownership. I'll take responsibility. That's fine. She's one of the two characters I actually felt sympathy for. And it took me thinking about it to get there for her, because I hated her.
It also made me think, though, of how cops will sometimes bring in minors to interrogation rooms, and they'll go ahead and start questioning them, or they'll stretch out the amount of time that they're interrogating them. And people will confess to crimes that they didn't do. Did that not happen with the 5 black men in New York?
It's happened. Yeah, it's happened multiple times. There's studies that have happened where there were studies at Harvard, there were studies at other places where they've taken people, and if you deny someone their basic human rights for enough time, and you feed them stories enough time and just plant enough little things, you can convince them they've actually committed a crime that they had no idea. They'll give you this much, and you can take it and stretch it and feed them stuff while they're under duress, and absolutely get confessions from them.
That's why I was so amazed by this book, because you get the social justice elements in here, even though it was written in 1818.
Well, the police brutality in those ages was much worse than it is today. It's, they were exceptionally cruel to people who they thought were criminals.
But were the privileged people aware of the disparities, or did they write it off as, oh, they must have done something wrong?
Well, I think because Roy just said something interesting in chat. He said, I guess Shelley and crew lived through the times when the fundamental rules of the world were being overturned, e.g. the French Revolution. And I think the French Revolution was a time in history where we truly saw the privileged had to see what the unwashed masses were going through, because they brought it to their doorstep and said, you will now experience this.
Wow.
So that could have a lot to do with the tone and what was being said in the book.
And Mary Shelley's mother was considered a radical in her day. She would have been like very far fringe in her beliefs.
So now now that we're kind of moved on from section 1, I figured this would be a good place to do our hot takes. So this is where you can rant, talk about the things or the people that you hated. If you have quotes to support your reasons for hating them, you can share those. I've got one that I marked where it was this was the biggest instance of just really realizing that Victor was definitely a narcissist. He says, a murmur of approbation followed Elizabeth's simple and powerful appeal, but it was excited by her generous interference, and not in favor of poor Justine, on whom the public indignation was turned with renewed violence. Charging her with the blackest ingratitude, she herself wept as Elizabeth spoke, but she did not answer. Here's the part where I'm getting to. My own agitation and anguish was extreme during the whole trial. I believed in her innocence. I knew it. Could the demon, who had I not for a minute doubt murdered my brother, also in his hellish sport, have betrayed the innocent to death and ignominy? Say that word. I could not sustain the horror of my situation, and when I perceived that the popular voice and the countenance of the judges had already condemned my unhappy victim, I rushed out of the court in agony. Now here's the line right here. Here's the one line. The tortures of the accused did not equal mine. She was sustained by innocence, but the fangs of remorse tore my bosom and would not forego their hold. I'm like, Victor, dude, she is literally dying for a crime she didn't commit. And you're over here like, woe is me. I created a monster.
Yeah, because no one can suffer more than him.
Oh, my gosh. I was like, wow. Wow.
Yeah, he's just like it's hard to speak of him in words that are not foul. He's just such, like you said, he really is the monster of this novel. He's just so detestable.
And then the other part was, okay, we give the monster a lot of grace, especially in the beginning, because we're like, oh, his plot in life sucks. But then it's like, is he actually remorseful for anything? So I have a quote from him too. The child still struggled and loaded me with epithets which carried despair to my heart. I grasped his throat to silence him, and in a moment he lay dead at my feet. I gazed on my victim, and my heart swelled with exultation and hellish triumph. Clapping my hands, I exclaimed, I too can create desolation. My enemy is not invulnerable. This death will carry despair to him, and 1,000 other miseries shall torment and destroy him. So it's like, he knows what he's doing, and he likes it. He's like, he knows. Deeper feelings, profound aesthetic appreciation. Oh.
Yeah, that's, you know, when we speak about it, like, it sounds very much like the murder of William was accidental, at least initially.
Yes.
And then he discovers that he has power over his creator and the ability to torment his creator. And that is what's giving the monster, I don't know, happiness, satisfaction, contentment.
And then my last hot take, and then y'all can take over for the hot takes, is that the whole romance between Frank and Elizabeth, I did, when I was looking through quotes, find out they are cousins. So I'm like, no. I know that was normal back then, but no. That's all for my hot takes. Victor's better than anyone else. Like the way he talks about mountains and stuff in the travel sections. Victor sees the sublime. So do y'all have any hot takes?
Not from part one.
Oh, I just mean the whole book.
Except the one that I already talked about, that Victor realizes after he animated the corpse what a horror he has done.
Do you have any hot takes, Monty?
Oh, I have hot takes. My
Go for it.
unintellectual hot takes.
Go for it.
So, I mean, I'll be the first to admit, you watch any of my stuff, you know this. I'm an emotional reader, right? So, as someone who does not read to analyze a book 99% of the time, I read to find connection with characters. Like, once I find a connection with characters, that's when I truly become interested in the book. That was hard in this book. Like, I mean, I'm going to say it, and I don't care. I didn't like this book. Had it not been for you, Heather, I would have DNF'd this after section 1.
Why was it for me?
Well, because I wanted to finish it, so I could have some.
that's
I didn't want to come on here and be like, I DNF'd this. But I could not connect anyone. Somewhat connected to Justine, right? Because I was like, okay, I understand religious guilt. I get that. But the only other character that I felt sympathy for, and it was not until the end of the book that I was like, oh, this poor person. I just want everyone to think, and this is how I came to this, because I'm like, I have to have sympathy for someone. Justine, yes, here kind of still, I would have fought. I would have been like, no way. But imagine this. There you are, back in the old-timey days in this time, probably sitting at your desk, writing your correspondence, planning your menus, thinking, oh, visiting I got to do.
Goodbye, Roy.
Night, Roy. And then you start getting your daily mail. And what's in there? But letters from your brother whining about how he has no friends. And you just have to sit there and read these letters from this whiny little brat that has no friends. And then he tells you this long tale of a narcissist and the narcissist murdering creation. And you're like, what in the... Dude, no, I got balls to go to. So seriously, I feel really bad for Mrs. Margaret Seville.
Walter's sister.
Yes.
Who
Because she had to listen to all this.
I thought you were going to say
we
Walter.
know nothing about her other than she's a
she has my sympathy, though. I'm sure she was trying to just run a household, and she has had to deal with that whiny little brat of a brother her entire life. And I can only imagine this is how he's always been. I got no friends. Lord knows I couldn't talk to my sailors because I'm too good for that. So I just have no friends. I was so sick of that. Seriously, just his...
I never thought of him as whiny, but now that you say it.
Oh, he's the typical man of that time. He's like I said, he had plenty of interaction with people, and
yes. Well, the way I had looked into it and I told Monty, I was like, this has got some gay subtext here. He ain't looking for a friend. He wants a man.
I don't. I disagree. I don't think there is a gay subtext. That would not have been in the typical wheelhouse. And back in those days,
They talk like that.
did, and if you were a man, you probably would not be friends with your spouse. Your spouse would be the woman you had children with.
Right.
That's so detached.
But
Well-
that's the way it was back. I mean,
Yeah.
for the most part, I think. I mean, they always talk about true love and like Jane Austen, and I think that's really sort of an outlier.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you, Greg. Like that was the way it was, right? Like you often married as more of a business venture, really. Business venture, alliances. But yeah, and I think, I don't know, even at the end, Walton seemed like he was just begging Frankenstein. He was to be his friend. He was such a little thirst trap. I hated him. Hated Frankenstein, hated the creature, hated Henry, hated Elizabeth, hated everyone in this book. I was so disappointed by everyone because I'm like, not one of you have a backbone, not one of you have a spine, not one of you have, some kind of moral conscious, like none of y'all feel anything except you're all just so shallow. You know what I mean? And anyway, but yeah.
Real from watching them all die one by one.
Yes.
Do you think that shallowness may be in part that as well written as this book is, Mary Shelley was 19.
Oh yeah.
When she wrote this. And I don't mean to be dismissive, but when you're 19 and even that, well, you are going to be shallow.
Yeah.
You just do not have enough life experience to think everything through. She probably had this old, not when I say a romantic visions of the world, it's not the romance love, it's that wild, exaggerated views of the world and men exploring and creating monsters and
see, and I so agree with you on that. And I thought, like, you could tell someone young wrote this, right? And the way I thought, like, I'm gonna compare it to modern day stuff. The way she described the characters, I mean, I know it was Victor describing everyone and Victor's whatever, but like so detailed and these like, and Mary Shelley's writing is beautiful. Like it's so pretty, beautiful writing.
Which surprises me that she's only
that
young.
But the way she described her characters was, although the language and the grammar and everything, the words were very pretty, it was kind of clunky in the way it's the way a first-time author over describes their characters and goes into, it's all show or all tell no show. And like, I'm Ebony Darkness Dementia Way, and I'm going to be wearing my Hot Topic sweater, and it's going to have pink fishnets and my leather mini skirt and my little, I'm like, dude, no, stop. No one needs to go that deep into describing a particular character. That is a first author mistake that when I read it, I'm like, this is so clunky. So beautiful, but clunky.
Any other hot takes?
Also, the only other thing I have to say about it is, I was looking for themes, and I think, appearance is a big theme, not taking accountability and having a responsibility for your stuff, big theme. But the other theme I think that I took away from it personally was, I think Mary Shelley was trying to say something about unbridled ambition, because to me, ambition can be a wonderful thing, right? It can make you go forward. It can make you strive. It can make you really work for things. But when you do it at the expense of your family, your friends, your health, everything, your moral code, like that's when it becomes super, super dangerous. And that's when it's no longer a virtue or a tool, however you want to look at that. And it truly is like your utter destruction.
I think you're right that she definitely meant to have that in there, because in the beginning, when he's going to school and he's learning everything in college, it talks about like if you have the interest in something, you've got to pursue it to the end. And with science, there's never an end. And that's kind of why he's fascinated with it. But then towards the end, it also talks about where it can go too far, like where you don't get any happiness because your whole life has been surrounded by that thing. So,
well, and Victor just he wanted the ultimate. You know what I mean? He wanted
to be the best.
He
Yeah.
wanted to prove himself right.
He didn't agree with his
That.
professors.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, I'm going to go off and do my own thing.
Right. And Greg's right. He wanted to prove himself right. He had to be right. At all costs. At all costs, he had to be right. Like, everyone died, so Frankenstein could be right. So Victor Frankenstein could be the winner.
And once he's get there, he's like, oh, I was right after all. Oh, crap. This thing, get away from me, monster.
I did mark down the monster's first words to Frankenstein, if we're interested in those.
Oh, yes.
Devil! I exclaimed. Oh, well, this is Frankenstein talking to him, and then it goes with him. Devil, I exclaimed, do you dare approach me, and do not you fear the fierce vengeance of my arm wreaked on your miserable head? Begone, vile insect, or rather, stay, that I may trample you to dust. And oh, that I could, with the extinction of your miserable existence, restore those victims whom you have so diabolically murdered. And then the first words from what he calls the demon in his chapters. I expected this reception, said the demon. All men hate the wretched. How then must I be hated, who am miserable beyond all living things? Yet you, my creator, detest and spurn me, thy creature, to whom thou art bound by ties only dissolvable by the annihilation of one of us. Your purpose to kill me. How dare you sport thus with life? Do your duty towards me, and I will do mine toward you and the rest of mankind. If you will comply with my condition, I will leave them and you at peace. But if you refuse, I will glut the maw of death until it be satiated with the blood of your remaining friends. Those are his first words to him. Oh, and then we get into, there's a lot of biblical references in here. So there's the comparison of the monster being Adam and Frankenstein being God. And there's also a later one where the monster is basically saying that if it were for one person to accept me in the world, I would stop my rampage. And so that has the parallel to Noah and the ark. Like God saves Noah, the one, instead of destroying the entire earth and everyone in it, because he finds Noah righteous. So there's a couple of places where it's very direct and it literally has like the names of these people. And then there's other places where it's more indirect, so you have to infer the connections.
Yeah, I think I highlighted some of that same, and I have it as chapter 2. The quote that I have is towards the end of his speech. The guilty are allowed by human laws, bloody as they may be, to speak in their own defense before they are condemned. Listen to me, Frankenstein. You accuse me of murder, and yet you would, with a satisfied consciousness, destroy your own creature. Oh, praise the eternal justice of man. He's being very kind of snarky or cynical at that. Yet I ask you not to spare me. Listen to me, and then, if you can, if you will, destroy the work of your hands.
And then do we want to get into the time on the farm? I think that was probably my favorite part of the book, was when he
Oh,
farm.
when the monster is learning. Yes, I mean, I that's when I really sort of grew admiration for this creature. He was so intrinsically intelligent and kind. I mean, he was bringing supplies to these people who had nothing to show them he wanted to be their friend. And then that just painful scene of him going to the blind father, and the
Oh,
blind father immediately accepted him. And it's only when, was it the son or the daughter, came in and saw this horrible corpse that they drove him out. And that's when I was like at university. We were discussing this. It was the first time I read it. Said, if you, did I mention this in comments? If you were to do this as a play or a movie, you could cast the monster as a black actor with no makeup and just make a statement. Because that's essentially what people are doing. They are just judging him on his appearance.
and that's what I marked down at the next part for a topic was, do you think the fear, because the blind man doesn't fear him, but also before he even approaches this first people, it's like he has the sense that he's going to be rejected before he ever says anything to him. So he's like, I ought not to make the attempt until I had first become master of their language, which knowledge might enable me to make them overlook the deformity of my figure. For with this also the contrast perpetually presented to my eyes had made me acquainted. And it's like he's going through all these steps just to get past the hurdle of unfamiliarity. So my question is, do you think that the whole fear, which I think this is your stance, and that's why you're saying you could just swap it out, is really more about people are scared of the unfamiliar? So if something looks hideous, that's something that they're fearful towards because they don't see a lot of people that look like that. Or if you do swap it out with a race, if you're only surrounded by people that look like you, then people who don't are unfamiliar, and the unknown is scary. So if he was not ugly, do you think that it would have worked out for him?
Absolutely. I think if Victor had made him a beautiful corpse, he would have been hailed for his remarkable intelligence, his, we won't call them superpowers, but enhanced abilities. Absolutely.
I think I agree at first. Well, I think he would have been accepted because of his looks, because obviously that matters in this book. And I do agree that I think at first, because of his enhanced abilities, he would have been celebrated and loved. But because he has those enhanced abilities, I guarantee you the mob would have turned on him because he's better than they are.
That would be a different one, yes.
And they would be scared and jealous, and like crabs right in a pot, right? You put all the crabs in the pot, one gets to the edge of the pot. What do the other crabs do? Pull it right back down. It would have been crabs in a pot. Because he would have been seen as superior, he had to go. And I think his fate would have been more of what we saw in the movie, and that mob would have went right after him.
In the movie, speaking of the movie, so there's the scene where he drowns the girl. In the book, there's the scene where he rescues the girl from drowning, and then he gets shot by the father. And it's sad. Like, he's carrying your daughter. Why is that the first conclusion that you make, that he wanted to harm her? If she's soaking wet, why would you not think that he saved her? You know what I mean? Like, where does that context, where does that jump?
It's the difference. It's the inability of people to accept him for his physical appearance. And go back in my story is like, let's take a story back to the Jim Crow South. Okay? And there was a drowning little Caucasian girl, and a Negro man rescued her and pulled her out of the water, dripping wet. And you have a father with a pistol on his side. What's he going to do? He's immediately going to shoot that man, because that's how they felt back then, and that's how people would have treated this monster when they saw him.
But I think if you're talking that analogy, I do agree that I absolutely agree that the people rejected the monster. I hate calling him that, but outright because of his looks, right?
He was never given one.
But I think when we're talking about Jim Crow South, there was also generations and generations of, the whites and the white race being told they were superior, and truly believing it in their heart of hearts that Black people and even people of, with skin that wasn't lily white were somehow, not as intelligent. They weren't as human. They were subhumans, almost a whole different species. And, they didn't have the intellect. They didn't have anything that could possibly compete with, these white people that obviously were masters of the universe and knew everything. And it's the only, how could you ever look at another person and say, I should own that person? Unless you truly believed that you were so superior to them, that they were nothing more than animals. And so I think that there's generations and generations of feeling that and really believing it. Although I do agree with you that the looks, but I think that there's some nuance there.
You're right. I'm making a point, based in England, where at that time they probably had very few people of other races out there, and that may not have been Mary Shelley's first instinct,
right?
But it definitely applies unless you're really going into the micro details, and then you will lose some of it. Yeah, like you said, that just inherited mistrust.
But I think from a 19-year-old's perspective, like we were saying with Shelley, that absolutely, because in a 19-year-old's view, it's not going to be that nuanced, right? It's going to be very kind of shallow, as we've kind of seen. That's the theme of the book, right? So, of course, a physical deformity would be the ultimate thing of like, So I agree, Greg.
You get into deformities or something that looks like it could be contagious or something. People freak out. Like when people had leprosy in the Bible days, it was like you would be like, unclean, unclean, and you'd like run away from them.
Well, yeah. And if this was a person that was made up of corpses,
and you had never seen that before, it really would look like an alien or something.
Or someone that had a disease. I think leprosy is a wonderful analogy there, because they would have known what leprosy is. Like, it was still prevalent back there. Leprosy exists today. We don't see it everywhere, but it still exists. So yeah, they probably would have been like, oh my gosh, this person's contagious. Do they have the plague? Do they have this? And they had all kinds of diseases back then. So yeah, good point, Heather.
I'd marked one of these, but I think we kind of already talked about it. I was marking where he was explaining, I'd put on here why he's a monster. So basically why he does the evil things. And he says, I'm malicious because I am miserable. Like literally that's his reason. So it's like, if people did treat him well, would he have ever resorted to being evil? I don't think that he would have because of the way that he was with the family in the cabin. I think that it's the whole nature versus nurture thing. And I think that by nature, he was good.
I agree. I mean, he is guilty of crimes, but he was pushed in that direction until the point where he saw no other way of achieving what he wanted. Because he did not want to be miserable. He wanted
to feel something, anything. So it's like if he couldn't feel love, then he was going to feel anger. Because then in the end, he dies. He takes his own life because he's like, oh, okay, I have nothing left to feel because it's reached the pinnacle of my anger. Like, you're dead. I can't.
He achieved the purpose of his life in destroying. Now, the question is, does he follow through?
Yeah, I guess that's interesting because it says that that's what he's going to do, but we don't actually see him do it.
You don't.
I hope he does.
I tend to think that he does. That he knew what he did was wrong, and it's over, and he says, "I'm done."
Yeah.
Now, there have been authors who have continued Frankenstein, the book, where they say the monster did not die, or that they found the monster frozen in ice, and because ice didn't really kill him, they thaw him, and oh, I'm back again.
Right. I don't know. I have complex feelings about that because, and maybe it's just because, I am totally okay being by myself. Always have been. I mean, I've never desired to have a ton of people around me. So, and I understand that the monster was rejected again and again and again, and he was pushed to things. But still have no sympathy for him because at the end of the day,
he still did it.
Well, not only that, but yeah, he did do it. And we are all responsible for our own actions. And, I when I was reading this, and up until the William part,
yes,
way at the end, of course I had sympathy for him. I'm like, this sucks. Like, of course, we always feel bad for those people, that get picked on or bullied or, and I'm going to tell you, all through school, I was bullied hardcore for my looks, called horrible names. Huh?
You're gorgeous.
Oh, you're so sweet, Heather. No, but like when I was a kid, I used to get called monkey all the time because I have full lips. And when I was little, they were very large. And so I was told I look like a monkey, which is a horrible thing to tell anyone. Like, don't ever call anyone that. That's awful. But like, yeah, so I mean, I was bullied all through school and like hated things and kept to myself and found a lot of solace in myself, right? Lost myself to reading, all that good stuff.
Same.
But now and I mean, we're not going to go into detail because you guys aren't going to get me crying tonight. Aww. But had I acted on that, and did some horrible thing to some of the people that were bullying me, one of the persons that were bullying me, would we all be like, well, she was pushed to it? That's cool. No, I mean, yeah, she's guilty, but she was pushed to it. No, hell no. I had a choice. You know what? I stuck it out, suffered, whatever, got out of it, moved on, because at the end of the day, I always knew I'm responsible for me. I can only control me. And life sucks now, but you know what? Whatever. It'll get better. And maybe had the monster not done that to William, had he just went to the polls or went somewhere, he gave up too quick. I understand a lot of people rejected him, but my gosh, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, sir.
And he had already learned through the blind man that would be his ticket to friendship. Just find another blind man.
And are you telling me there is no one else that could possibly see past what you look like? That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
And the fact that not only did he do that, but he framed someone that wasn't even closely connected to Victor.
And completely innocent person.
you have to understand that Mary Shelley was trying to write a ghost story, and you cannot necessarily apply all this logic that we have nowadays to the story. Now, one of the ones you mentioned, like Victor was creating a woman for his monster, and he got terrified that they were going to have children and breed a race of monsters. And someone commented out, well, you just make the female without a womb.
Oh, because technically he could have done that.
But the thing is,
my next sticky note was, should he
when
have given him what he wanted?
Yeah, I actually reject that as a criticism, because I think that's applying too much of our modern times to a 19-year-old girl in 1810 to decide, oh yeah, be just simple, just make him his monster without a womb and everything would be fine.
I mean, I think he was still terrified that that monster could be worse than the monster that he had already created, though, too.
Right.
True. Yeah.
Which is why he ultimately didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is interesting, because it's also like, well, what if he did do it? Like, would that have made things better or not? You never really know. Because if the nature was that the monster was good, then giving him what he wanted might have resolved the situation. But also, you got to get your comeuppance. So
you do, and you could have created the female, and the female going to go, "Damn, you're ugly. I don't want to be with
you." Or he could have created that female. They would have went off, and guess what? The monster still could have murdered people because he obviously liked it.
Which brings us to the next point: the wedding night threat. When he refuses to make the girlfriend for him. He says he's going to see him again on the wedding night. And dumb, arrogant Victor thinks that just means that he's going to do something to him, not to Elizabeth. Oh, man.
Poor simple Victor.
And part of that is the terror aspect, is that Mary Shelley's trying to get you to think there's going to be this big conflict between Victor and his monster. And that's where the terror, because all of a sudden, when you think about it, you say, oh my God, it's Elizabeth that's killed. So that's her.
Never occurred to him.
It never occurred to the character. I mean, but you want the engagement of the reader, feeling fear, and then seeing Victor. Oh, it's almost he's going to get away with it. The monster isn't going to come, and then you realize what has happened in the background.
Yeah, I'm not going to name it because I don't want to spoil this book, but it's been out for quite some time. John Green book. We'll say it that way. But you are led to believe during the whole book that this impending doom is slowly approaching this one character. That character winds up being fine, and it is the person that you thought was going to be, that was fine, that winds up not being fine. Right. So that's the only way I cannot spoil it.
Or did Shelley try to write this?
Heather, here is your reminder. Start winding down.
Thanks, Alexa.
We've been going an hour and a half, so
yeah,
that's just like my 9 o'clock thing, so that I try to stay on a sleep schedule. So it basically tells me you got an hour, and then you need to start getting ready for bed.
Or do you think that Shelley wrote it? I'll just say this, and then we can start wrapping it up. But was Shelley writing the way she did in that scene? Because like we all knew the monster was going to go after Elizabeth. So did she intend that? So we're sitting there screaming at Victor. No, Victor, not you, bucko. It's going to be Elizabeth. Kind of like you do in like every scary movie. Yeah, where you're like, just look behind you. Look behind you.
In the basement.
Because that's what I was doing. I was pretty engaged at that point. I'm like, Victor, you're so stupid. Like, come on, Victor. So she did engage me. Whether she meant to write it either way.
Horror stories have not changed since 1818. So we're still using the same old gimmicks.
I think it's the same tropes.
I think you're right.
The one death I did not expect, Henry.
Henry was too beautiful for this world.
I don't even remember why he was killed and how he was killed.
I don't remember too. It just sort of
breezed
I
over
remember
quickly. I don't even remember how Victor got
drowned.
out of prison because they like hauled him in, and then I feel like his dad came to the island somehow and like got him out.
Yeah.
But I don't really remember the details.
Well, and I remember Victor talking about Henry's bloated corpse because he talks about how beautiful he was in life and then like how disgusting his bloated corpse was. And I'm all, of course, Victor, we're going to go right to his looks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he was drowned. I don't know if it was very explicit. It was, but he had a bloated.
Yeah, because there
corpse.
was he was reported that they had seen a guy in a boat, and then Victor had came in on a boat like afterward.
Yeah.
So
now
he had killed him.
now remembering that a bit.
Then we come to the hunting the monster. And then the fact that as they are trying to go hunt this monster, they get stuck in the ice. The ship gets stuck in the ice, and they're going to starve to death if they try to just wait for the ice to break up and go further. So do they turn around? And I feel like Victor still wanted them to go forward, and the captain was kind of wanting to do it too, and the men were like, no, we have families.
Yeah, the sailors weren't going to go for it.
Yeah, I agree. Walton's one good thing, right? Is his loyalty to his crew. He did say, look, I mean, whether that was true loyalty to him or he just knew that they would mutiny and both him and Victor would be out in that ice and that crew would still take the boat back. Like that was Walton did do a good thing there.
And then, of course, we have the monster's supposed death, which I think we were all kind of okay with. So, any last thoughts on the book itself before we get into our final game?
I would just say, here's my takeaway. Even if you're bullied and people are mean to you because you don't meet beauty standards, do not kidnap and murder children. Do not murder anyone. Like, life will get better. There is someone for everyone. That's what I'm going to leave this. That's my big takeaway from this book is don't be like Victor. Don't be like the monster. Don't be like anyone in this book. Just be Mrs. Margaret Seville reading this book and going, oh, Lord.
That's interesting. We are Margaret. We are Margaret.
Yeah, because we're all taking this information in the same way. Hold on. That Margaret would have taken it in.
And that's why I had sympathy for her. I felt her pain.
Now, I know, Monty, you did not think highly, but I really like this book. This is like the 5th time in my life I've read it over 40 years or something like that. So, and not Camden's not good. Like when I did my Western canon, I did put this on as one of the top 20 books that people should read in the Western canon because I think it's just so influential in how other people have picked up books in the genre. It's a horror novel. It's a science fiction novel. It's a moral dilemma with a lot of ethical issues. And I'm just so impressed that a 19-year-old wrote that book. It just blows me away.
See, my fun with it was not only the writing, but also like the philosophical thoughts surrounding the book, more so than necessarily what was happening in the book. It was like, oh, she realizes this is a 19-year-old. Wow. So.
Well, and even though I did not enjoy it, because like I said, I have to connect to my characters. That's where I get my pleasure from reading. Mary Shelley was very talented and extremely gifted for a 19-year-old. Even though, like I said, there's problems with first books. Every author has problems with their first book. So I'm not trying to discredit Mary Shelley at all because I'm not sad that I read the book. I'm very happy I read the book. It just was not my cup of tea. but it did make for an interesting read and a very interesting discussion with two wonderful people. So I'm very
Thank
happy
you.
for that.
We've got to continue our friendship post Frankenstein. By the way, for anyone watching, we all met from starting this read along. We didn't know each other beforehand
No.
at all. I was just like, hey, open call for co-host.
And I didn't even know I was volunteering. I was just like, I was excited to read Frankenstein because I'd never read it. And you're like, you can co-host. I'm like, okay.
I was
Cool.
like, I don't care. I didn't even check people's channels.
Well, you got to start somewhere.
I was like, I don't care if y'all got one subscriber. If you know how to, if you have a camera to be on, then that's fine. I like, this is the way you get to know people. Is you just, yeah, okay, you want to do it? Cool, let's be friends.
But I think it's made for good discussions because we are three very different readers. And I think we read different genres. I think we come from different experiences. And so I think it's made for good discussion. I've learned a lot of things and I'm taking away a lot more from the discussions than necessarily like reading the book. I've had a lot of fun and there's definitely takeaways for me.
Absolutely. It's been an experience because you're doing a lot of different things that I would not have tried as a channel. So
I like to use this as my creative outlet. I did not think that y'all were going to be up for everything that I asked of y'all at all. So whenever we had like that little starter meeting, because like y'all didn't know anything about using StreamYard, anything like that, I was like, my thought was, if y'all will just join me on this, the main live stream, I will be happy and content. But I'm gonna tell y'all my ideas, and y'all are just like, okay, we can do a watch along.
You know, it's your channel, and I'm just along for the ride.
Same.
I see. If I were to do a book like this, I probably wouldn't do everything that you did, but that's because we're vastly different people.
I'm extra. I spent like 2 hours preparing for this video.
I love it, Heather.
It's fun. And we still have a watch along on the coming Monday. So
I'm excited for that.
So that'll be here on this channel at 7:30. And as far as this live show, now we are to the hopefully super fun part, which is the competition that you, nice viewers, can also compete in.
Keep score.
Yes. Do y'all have pen and paper, or you think you'll be fine just shouting out the answer? Pen and paper. Awesome.
I have no pen and paper next to me. I'll just.
Yeah, but I'm gonna desperately lose this game because
you can be vague. So if you don't remember the name and you're like, oh, it was Victor's brother, I will take that as a correct answer if it's Victor's brother, because I also would not know all the names. So y'all prepared some quotes, so we can start with y'all's, and because I did a lot of extra ones, so that way if there's repeats, I'm just not going to use those because obviously we're not answering the question.
All right, Greg, you go first.
All right, I'm only going to do a couple of them.
Okay.
And we'll just write it down on our thing. And if anyone plays, since it looks like there's only a couple viewers, I can even make them a spot, but I just put on here viewer so y'all can play and I can check y'all down too.
Oh no, I lost one of my favorite ones. My tag fell out.
Oh no.
Oh, there it is.
I don't normally tag all the quotes and stuff when I read, but I did with this one because I knew I was going to do this game.
I can't find it. I'll have to pick some of the other ones. The monster saw my determination in my face and gashed his teeth in the impotence of anger. Shall each man, he cried, find a wife for his bosom, and each beast have his mate, and I be alone? I had feelings of affection, and they were requited by the destination of scorn. Man, you may hate, but beware, your hours will pass in dread and misery, and soon the bolt will fall, which much ravish from you your happiness forever. I think we read part of that, didn't we?
No. See, because when you first started saying it, I thought it was one person, but now I think it's the other person. So I'm just gonna have to guess and write it down. Don't.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
My answer switched. Oh my gosh.
Do we haven't had a good quotes?
All right, y'all. If you're watching, you can put in your guess, and we'll show it, and then Greg will tell us who's right, who gets a point.
Yeah.
Do I know who's right? Oh.
You got yours written down, Monty?
I've got mine written down.
All right, let's show it.
I don't know if you can see it. So I said Victor.
Victor. See, at first I
it's-
thought it was Victor, and then I switched.
No, it's the monster because
I took a guess.
Good job, Heather.
It really sounded like Victor at first, and then the further he got down, I was like,
well, look, I gave it away. I read too much. It says the monster saw my determination in my face and gashed.
no, it's when you said that. That's why I thought it was Victor.
Yes, but now it's a quote. Quote, shall each man, he cried, find a wife for his bosom. And he keeps calling Victor man.
Oh.
That's his like, it's like.
Yeah, I didn't even. I thought from the first part that it was Victor.
That's like, why I went with Victor.
It'd be like a person proclaiming God, why have you forsaken me? He goes, man, you may hate. So that's like just switching back and forth. So why don't someone else go?
Okay, I'll do one of mine because mine are simple. So
Okay.
y'all better get this right. Okay, here it is. I try in vain to be persuaded that the pole is the seat of frost and desolation. It ever presents itself to my imagination as the region of beauty and delight.
I know who I think it is.
I have two guesses, but I'm just going to put the first one because two guesses is not.
Always go with your first instinct. All right.
I'm saying Walton.
I thought it might have been Walton.
It is Walton.
Okay, yeah, I should have went with my second guess. The only reason why I went with Victor is because I remember you saying his descriptions of the place were really beautiful. So it changed my mind. So Greg gets a point for that one. All right.
Your turn, Heather.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, and I try to trick y'all with mine. So William is dead. That sweet child whose smiles delighted and warmed my heart, who was so gentle yet so gay. Victor, he is murdered. And remember, if you're an audience member, you can still participate. I have you on the scoreboard. So you just pop it on in the comments. And then when y'all two both have it, we can
I have it.
Show it. Okay.
Okay.
You got yours written down?
Oh, he doesn't have paper.
Oh,
so I'm going to show mine. Well,
we'll have him say his aloud first, and then you show yours.
Yeah.
Who?
Monster.
Nope.
I went with Elizabeth.
Nope. It was Alphonse Frankenstein, so it was the father.
The father, okay.
Dad, okay.
Yeah. I stumped y'all. I'm going to put
Good job, Heather.
Stumped on here.
Yeah.
Stumped score 1. Oh, man. Who is next?
I think we're back to Greg.
I think so, but I think all my quotes should just.
Greg lost all his markers.
I know. They found out. Why don't someone go ahead of me and let me see if I can find the one that I actually wanted.
Okay, I have another one.
Okay.
Sir Isaac Newton is said to have avowed that he felt like a child picking up shells beside the great and unexplored ocean of truth.
All right. I've gotten mine written down.
I think I got my. I'm going to say Victor.
I also went with Victor.
It's the monster.
Oh!
Oh,
See, I thought he wouldn't know of Isaac Newton, so that's why I went with Victor. So we both got it wrong, so that gives another stumped one. I'm going to put our little initials when we stump people so we can get stump scores too.
I need 1 point. Y'all have 1 point. I need to get 1 point. I got to get this next one right.
We still need time.
I can give a quote here.
Okay.
I intended to reason. This passion is detrimental to me, for you do not reflect that you are the cause of its excess. If any, if any being felt emotions of benevolence towards me, I should return them 100 and 100-fold. For that one creature's sake, I would make peace with the whole kind.
Which goes back to the Noah thing I was saying earlier. So I think I know what this one is.
I think I know who this one is too. I'm going to feel real dumb though. So.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Monster, yep.
Yes, I got a point. Finally.
Actually, all my quotes are the monster, I think.
Are they all? You didn't have to tell us.
I think we've got enough quotes.
All right. Are y'all ready?
All right.
Yep.
Indeed.
Is this the last one, Heather?
Oh, I've got a lot on here. We don't have to do this all though.
Frank is starting to cry, so I'm gonna have to go put him to bed.
Oh, gotcha.
Let's do one more. We've been at it an hour and 47 minutes. So.
Yeah.
So if one of y'all gets it right, you'll tie with me. If neither of y'all get it right, then I'll win.
Nice.
Indeed, who would credit that Justine Moritz, who was so amiable and fond of all the family, could suddenly become so capable, so frightful, so appalling a crime? Capable of so frightful, so appalling a crime. I will give you a hint. It is not Victor, and it is not Victor's father who says this. It is a Frankenstein family member.
Oh, mother of pearl, dude.
So,
okay, I've got my guess.
I'm gonna have to go with Elizabeth. Then
That's exactly what I wrote down. Was Elizabeth?
It was Ernest. So it was the youngest brother.
Good job, Heather.
Good job.
So I got 2 stumped y'all points, and I got 2 correct answers. Monty, you got a stumped us point, and you got a correct answer. And Greg, you got a correct answer. So,
well, Heather, congratulations. You did awesome.
Yes.
y'all too. I think y'all were the perfect host to start this off right. So I have high hopes for Dracula. And I know the co-hosts that are going to be doing that.
Who's going to be co-hosting Dracula with you?
So I don't want to get confused. I know MJ is one because she's made a thread and everything on hers. And then the other one, I think Nicole is January. And I think it might be my bookshelf.
Nice.
Let me see here. Oh, it's Read Fine Books. I get that all wrong.
Well, I think you're going to have
and Read This Life. So
that's going to be a lot of fun.
That will be good.
And then December is going to be my bookshelf and Kelly Reads Live. So
awesome. Well, I'll be reading along with you guys. I have read Dracula, but I'll reread it.
I have read Dracula about a year ago.
Mm.
So I'll probably follow along on some of the watch along, but I don't think I'm going to have time to reread it. But
Yeah.
Who knows?
I didn't know how long it was. It's 400 pages.
That's
I,
not.
I need to get
Yeah.
started because I'm a slow reader. But yeah, this was fun. So for those of you that stick around, I'll probably read a couple other quotes. But and if y'all are watching, you can put in your guesses. But other than that, y'all are free to go.
Well, Heather, thank you again for
Well,
it
thank
was
you.
a lot of fun. And Greg, it was really cool to get to know you and interact and have these like live streams with you. It was a lot of fun. So thank you very
It's
much
fun
as
to
well.
meet you and bring your birds.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Those little demons. Yeah, sorry I could not have Frank on me tonight. I knew I would have gotten bit. He is in a mood, so I was like, let's not do that tonight. I have to talk too much. If I sit here and be quiet, he's fine. So maybe the next watch along, he'll be with me because
My only worries with the birds is that they could be sweet, but then they might poop on you, and you wouldn't know when to expect it. Because I don't feel like a bird would give you warning.
so Frank does. He's there is one video on my channel if you want to go hunt it up. There is one where I'm talking and he's standing up here, and I'm pretty sure I'm wearing. I'm wearing pink. I've got my pink cardigan on and a pink shirt. A lot of pink in that video, and he pooped right down my back. But had I been paying attention to him and not like been like yuck 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 in the camera, he was telling me that he had to go because he makes a certain sound and he'll often bite my ear. And if I ask him, do you need to go back? Do you need to go back to your cage? He'll say, and I'll take him back and he poops and then he's fine. But it has happened and whatever. Bird poop's fine. It's not bad at all. It doesn't smell. So it's like, you get used to it. When you have birds, you just have to get used to it because.
The worst I've caught on camera. So on this channel, it's been a stink bug crawling across the screen. And then I tried to show everyone the stink bug by picking it up with a Hot Pocket box. I scooped it up and then I put it on the camera and then it flew and like went right past my head. And like it kept flying around every time I would relocate it.
Oh,
and then also a spider dropped in front of my face one time. Like it was on the ceiling and it just went like right in front. I didn't see the spider in front of me, but I saw it from the camera. So then I'm like, oh, and I like jump back. And then I'm like hunting with a broom for webs.
Yeah, I would have been out of my mind.
It was a small one. It wasn't like big and terrifying, but it was still a spider. So I was screaming.
Yeah, that would have. Yeah, I would have been terrified.
Oh man! But anyway, I will see y'all again Monday night.
Monday night it is. And thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Subscribe to their channels. They're linked down below in the description. Bye.
Bye. All right.
All right. Now, if any of y'all are still here and you want to guess, you can. And I can still keep score. But I have some more quotes. So where are we? Okay. If she is, as you believe, innocent. Oh, well, we already did that one earlier. That was the dad. I do not fear to die. That's pangs past. God raises my weakness and gives me courage to endure the worst. I leave a sad, bitter world. Any guesses? I'm allowing for the delay because there's a slight delay. So I've got to give y'all a little bit of time. All right. I don't see anything. So that is Justine. I was tempted to plunge into the silent lake that the waters might close over me and my calamities forever. That one is Victor. I tremble with rage and horror, resolving to wait his approach, and then close with him in mortal combat. That one is also Victor. Beware, for I am fearless and therefore powerful. Now, I do have a cup that says this on it. And that is going to be the monster. So then I have a couple that were very long. So I didn't write them down because I'm lazy. So I wrote down the page numbers and who said them. So, let's see what we've got here. Wait. Oh. Poor William, said he. Dear lovely child, he now sleeps with his angel mother, who that had seen him bright and joyous in his young beauty, but must weep over his untimely loss, to die so miserably, to feel the murderer's grasp. How much more a murderer that could destroy such radiant innocence? Poor little fellow. One only consolation we have we. His friends mourn and weep, but he is at rest. The pang is over. His sufferings are at an end forever. A sod covers his gentle form, and he knows no pain. He can no longer be a subject for pity. We must reserve that for the miserable survivors. Then I will find the next one as y'all put in your answers if you have any answers. I think I've got 2 quotes left, and then it's going to be the end. Page 79. All right. So that one was Clairval. Very hard one. I was really trying to stump people. All right. Now this is... Oh. Before I looked upon the accounts of vice and injustice that I read in books or heard from others as tales of ancient days or imaginary evils, at least they were remote and more familiar to reason than to the imagination. But now misery has come home, and men appear to me as monsters, thirsting for each other's blood. Yet I am certainly unjust. Everybody believes that poor girl to be guilty, and if she could have committed the crime for which she suffered, assuredly she would have been the most depraved of human creatures. For the sake of a few jewels, to have murdered the son of her benefactor and friend, a child whom she had nursed from its birth, and appeared to love as if it had been her own. I could not consent to the death of any human being, but certainly I should have thought such a creature unfit to remain in the society of men. But she was innocent. I know, I feel she was innocent. You are of the same opinion, and that confirms me. Alas, Victor, when falsehood can look so like the truth, who can assure themselves of certain happiness? I feel as if I were walking on the edge of a precipice, toward which thousands are crowding and endeavoring to plunge me into the abyss. William and Justine were assassinated, and the murderer escapes. He walks about the world free, and perhaps respected. But even if I were condemned to suffer on the scaffold for the same crimes, I would not change places with such a wretch. That one is Elizabeth. And then we have one from page 108. Oh, a little far. Oh, I didn't. Of what a strange nature is knowledge. It clings to the mind when it has once seized on it like a lichen on the rock. I wished sometimes to shake off all thought and feeling, but I learned that there was but one means to overcome the sensation of pain, and that was death, which I feared yet did not understand. I admired virtue and good feelings and loved the gentle manners and amiable qualities of my cottagers. But I was shut out from intercourse with them, except through means which I obtained by stealth, when I was unseen and unknown, and which rather increased than satisfied the desire I had of becoming one among my fellows. The gentle words of Agatha and the animated smiles of the charming Arabian were not for me. The mild exhortations of the old man and the lively conversation of the loved Felix were not for me. Miserable, unhappy wretch. And that one is from The Monster. And then we have one on page 121. Do not despair. To be friendless is indeed to be unfortunate, but the hearts of men, when unprejudiced by any obvious self-interest, are full of brotherly love and charity. Rely therefore on your hopes, and if these friends are good and amiable, do not despair. They are kind. Oh, sorry, that went into the next paragraph. Um, which actually it does continue, but it's like continues for pages, so we're not doing that. But that's that quote. And then last but not least, we have one on page 162. By the way, that one was The Monster. No. That one was DeLacy, which is the grandfather when he's at the cabin. Yeah, I tried to make these really hard. I probably shouldn't make them so hard for Dracula, but hey, I had fun with it. All right, 162. Why did I not die? More miserable than man ever was before, why did I not sink into forgetfulness and rest? Death snatches away many blooming children, the only hopes of their doting parents. How many brides and youthful lovers have been one day in the bloom of health and hope, and the next a prey for worms and the decay of the tomb? Of what materials was I made, that I could thus resist so many shocks, which, like the turning of the wheel, continually renewed the torture? But I was, oh, sorry. This book is really good, so I just keep wanting to read it. But that's it. That's it. So that one, I put the quote and I didn't even put who said it. What did I just read? Who did say that? I didn't even write down who said it. I believe that this was Victor. Yes, that was Victor. Right before he goes into prison. So, yep. There you go. That's it. That's like really it. That's everything I had prepared for y'all. So I hope you enjoyed this one. The only game that we didn't play, we didn't have anything for, like we couldn't come up with it. It was the concept that we had before we read the book. And Greg was right that it was not going to be a game that we could do for this book, but we might do it for future ones. And that's Pictionary, where we draw some sort of image from the story and then we're trying to guess what it is. But there was literally nothing that we could have done for that in this one. So maybe in the future, but let me know which parts of the discussion you enjoyed the most. Did you like the kind of like more thorough discussions on like the philosophical topics of the books. That is kind of like the more analytical, what you typically would see in a live show about a book. Or was your favorite parts the memes, the hot takes, the what do you call it? Mad Lib that we did, or the quotes where we did the game. Let me know what was your favorite part so that I can make sure to do that in the next live show, because there is going to be many, many, many to come. I already have books selected throughout the rest of the year. So next month is going to be Dracula by Bram Stoker. So if you are interested in that, then you definitely want to go get your copy somewhere. And it is a classic, so I'm sure there are plenty of places where you can get it for free through like Library of Congress or something like that, the Gutenberg Press thingy. Because it is in the public domain, so it should be freely available somewhere. Because these books are classics. And yeah. And then December is going to be Wuthering Heights. I always want to say Withering Heights. I'm not really sure how you say it, but anyway, that book by Emily Bronte. So those are the book choices until the end of the year. And then for January, we are going to be doing Iola Leroy. This is a very tiny one. And it is written by one of the first published, just like something, is it a crease? I think it's creased a little bit and it made it like a different color. But anyway, this is published by Frances Harper. Let me see if there's a bio in the back so I can give you some more details. There is a note in the back. From threads of fact and fiction, I've woven a story whose mission will not be in vain if it awaken in the hearts of our countrymen a stronger sense of justice and a more Christ-like humanity in behalf of those whom the fortunes of war threw homeless, ignorant, and poor upon the threshold of a new era. Nor will it be in vain if it inspire the children of those upon whose brow God had poured the chrism of that new era to determine that they will embrace every opportunity, develop every faculty, and use every power God has given them to rise in the scale of character and condition, and to add their quota of good citizenship to the best welfare of the nation. There are scattered among us materials for mournful tragedies and mirth-provoking comedies which some hand may yet bring into the literature of the country, glowing with the fervor of the tropics and the enriched by the luxuriance of the Orient, and thus add to the solution of our unsolved American problem. The race has not had very long to straighten its hands from the hoe, to grasp the pen and wield it as a power for good, and to erect above the ruined auction block and slave pen institutions of learning. But there is light beyond the darkness, joy beyond the present pain. There is hope in God's great justice. And the old term for Black people, which I don't use now because even though it was the appropriate term then, it's not now. So it would feel weird to say. If that makes sense. Rising brain. Though the morning seems to linger over the hilltops far away, yet the shadows bear the promise of a brighter coming day. So basically, the author of this was one of the first published Black women in America. So she is like the beginning of that. And this is not a nonfiction story because I want to be doing classics that are fiction stories. So it is kind of hard to find ones that are diverse, that are like true classics written in like the 1800s. And this fits the bill. So it is one of the first ones that was published. So I am excited to see how it goes. And I've watched some reviews and people really enjoyed this book. But it is like not heard of that much, which is weird because it's one of the first, so it's super popular, and yet nobody talks about it. So, and look how skinny it is. It's so skinny. So hopefully y'all will want to join in on that in January. And if you join the Discord, you can see the list for all of the picks we have for the rest of the year. It's 134 pages. So it's not very long. It is a little bit of a smaller text, but you can also get it for free as an ebook. I did find an ebook version. So yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And we will be doing Dracula's live show at the end of next month. So you'll have a little bit longer to read the book. And thank goodness, because it's 400 pages long. So I feel like you need that extra time. I don't know how many watch-alongs we're going to do. If y'all have really enjoyed the watch-alongs, then we might do a few of them. If y'all are just like, they're okay, I don't really need a watch-along, then we might just do one watch-along. So it's all going to kind of be up to my co-host as well, which one of the co-hosts gets up really early in the morning, so they go to bed earlier, and then the other one, I believe, lives in Australia. So I think we're going to be doing our events around 4 o'clock. So they'll be happening earlier in the day. But also I'll be starting the new job. So some of the dates may be a little up in the air. But anyway, yeah, that's all I got for you. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share with friends, and I'll see you all later. Bye.